Mara Voss had lived alone at the edge of the Montana forest for 3 years, and in all that time, the forest had never frightened her. It was the rest of the world that did that. She had come to the mountains after everything in her city life had quietly fallen apart. A relationship that ended without drama, but left a hollow space in her chest. A job at a busy animal clinic that burned her out in ways she could not explain to people who thought loving animals was easy. She had packed 2 bags, taken a position as a wildlife veterinarian for a rural conservation program, and driven north until the highway turned to gravel, and the gravel turned to dirt. She had not missed the city once. Her cabin sat between a frozen creek and a wall of pine trees so tall they blocked the afternoon sun. She kept a small clinic in the attached shed, drove an old truck with a cracked dashboard, and spent her evenings reading beside a wood stove that popped and hissed all night. She was good at her work. She was good at being alone. Those 2 things, she had decided, were enough. On the night that changed everything, a storm came down from the north without much warning. Mara had gone to bed early, but the wind woke her. A low, rattling sound against the windows that told her the temperature had dropped sharply. She pulled on her boots and her heavy coat and went outside to check the shed latch, which had a habit of swinging open in strong wind and letting the cold in. The latch was fine. She was turning back toward the cabin when she saw the dark shape at the tree line. At first she thought it was a shadow, then it moved, just slightly, a slow shift in the snow, and she understood it was an animal, a large one. She grabbed the flashlight from the porch hook and crossed the yard carefully. The wolf was enormous. She had seen wolves before. She had treated 2 in her time with the conservation program, both smaller females brought in after vehicle collisions. This animal was different in a way she could not immediately name. He was black, almost entirely, with a coat that should have blended into the dark tree line but somehow did not. His size was wrong for a standard wolf, too broad across the shoulders, too long in the leg, and his eyes, when the flashlight found them, were a deep amber gold that caught the light like glass. He did not growl. He did not flinch. He simply looked at her. The left side of his body was soaked dark with blood. Around his right foreleg, buried into the fur and skin, was the steel jaw of a trap. Old, heavy, the kind that should not have been legal for decades. She could see from where she stood that the leg was badly damaged. Mara stood in the snow for a moment, the wind pulling at her coat, and thought about what the correct thing to do was. The correct thing was to call the wildlife agency. The correct thing was to stay back, because an injured wild animal in pain was a dangerous animal, and a wolf that size could take her arm off before she had time to be sorry about her decision. She went and got her truck anyway. It took her 40 minutes to approach him slowly enough, to get the catch pole around his neck gently enough, to ease the trap open with her heavy gloves, and slide a field bandage around the leg. He did not bite her. He did not struggle. He kept those gold eyes on her face the entire time, steady and unblinking, and she had the deeply uncomfortable feeling that he was watching her the way a person watches someone, not with animal fear or animal pain, but with something closer to patience. She got him onto a tarp in the truck bed, drove back to the shed, and spent the next 4 hours working. The trap had torn through muscle but missed the bone. The flank wound was deeper. Something had struck him there, hard, and the gash ran nearly 8 inches along his ribs. She cleaned it, closed it, put a line in his foreleg for fluids, and wrapped the damaged leg in a proper support bandage. She gave him pain medication that she measured carefully for his weight, and sat back on the floor of the shed with her back against the wall and watched him breathe. He slept. She stayed until the sky outside the small shed window began to go gray. Then she went inside, drank cold coffee, and told herself this was a temporary situation. Over the next 3 days, she told herself that several more times. The wolf, she called him Shadow, because she had to call him something, recovered faster than she had expected. Not just faster than she had hoped, faster than was medically reasonable. By the end of the first day, the flank wound had closed in a way that should have taken a week. By the end of the second day, he was sitting up on his own. He ate everything she put in front of him without hesitation and drank a tremendous amount of water. She took notes. It was what she did when she did not understand something. She wrote it down and looked at it until it started to make sense. It was not making sense. On the second night, she woke at 2 in the morning, with the feeling that something was wrong. She got up and crossed to the shed door, opened it quietly, and stopped. Shadow was sitting beside the shed entrance, not lying down, facing the dark yard. His ears were forward, his body was still. He was not sleeping. He was watching the darkness beyond the fence line, with calm, focused attention, the way a soldier watches a perimeter. When he heard her behind him, he turned his head and looked at her, then he turned back to the yard. Mara stood in the doorway for a long moment, then went back inside and locked the cabin door, which she had not bothered to do in 3 years. On the 4th morning, she went to the shed at sunrise and found it empty. The blankets she had put down for him were pushed aside. The IV line was on the floor, neatly removed. The shed door was closed, not broken. She walked around the outside of the cabin twice, checked the yard, checked the tree line. No wolf, no tracks leading away into the snow. What she found instead was a man asleep on her living room floor. She found him because she came back inside to get her phone and nearly stepped on him. He was tall. She could see that even lying down, with dark hair and skin that was pale from cold. He was wearing nothing except a blanket that he had apparently pulled from the back of her couch. She grabbed the fireplace poker before she said anything. He woke on his own before she spoke. His eyes opened, and they were amber gold, and Mara felt the hair on her arms stand up straight beneath her flannel shirt. He sat up slowly, without sudden movement, as if he understood that sudden movement was a bad idea. He looked at the fireplace poker, then at her face, then around the room. A quick, quiet scan, the way someone checks a space when they are used to needing to know what is in it. "I am not going to hurt you," he said. His voice was low and unhurried. "I know that is not a very convincing thing to say, but I want to say it first." Mara kept the poker where it was. "Who are you? How did you get into my house?" He was quiet for a moment. "My name is Darian Cole. I got into your house the same way I have been in your shed for the past 3 days." He looked at her steadily. "I owe you my life. And because of that, I owe you the truth, even though it is going to be difficult to hear." She did not lower the poker. "Start talking." He talked for a long time. She did not believe him at first. That was the honest version of what happened. She stood in her own living room holding a fireplace poker and listened to a man explain, in a calm and reasonable voice, that he was not fully human, that he was what her culture would call a shifter, a person who could move between human and animal form, that he was, specifically, the alpha king of a community of his kind that had lived in these mountains for generations, hidden from the world outside. He told her that the hunters who had set the trap were not poachers. They were members of a rival faction within his own community, people who wanted to end the old agreement of secrecy, expose everything, and take control of the chaos that followed. They had known where he would be. They had set the trap with silver worked into the steel, which weakened his ability to shift and slowed his healing, and they had been waiting. He had gotten away, but only barely, and in the forest, injured, barely able to hold his form, he had followed the only thing his instincts pointed him toward: her scent. "That is not something I can explain in a way that will satisfy you scientifically," he said. "I know that. I am just telling you what happened." Mara put the poker down, not because she believed him, because she was a scientist, and the things she had seen over the past 3 days did not have a scientific explanation she had been able to write in her notes. The speed of his healing, the way he had been watching her door, the blood samples she had taken on the first night, which she had not yet sent in, because something had made her hesitate, that showed cell structures she had never seen in any animal she had treated. She went to her shed. She brought the samples back. She showed him. He looked at them without surprise. "Yes," he said, "that is what we are." She made coffee. It was the only thing she could think to do. She made 2 cups and put one in front of him, and sat across the table, and started asking questions in the same methodical way she approached every problem she did not understand. He answered all of them. They sat at her table for 3 hours. Outside, the snow had stopped, and the morning was bright and very still. At some point she realized she had stopped thinking about the poker. Darian explained the structure of his community, the laws that kept them hidden, the careful, long-practiced way they had existed alongside the human world without being seen. He told her what the rival faction wanted and why it was dangerous, not just to his people but to everyone, because the world was not ready, and exposure without preparation would not end in peace. He told her about the attack in detail, the 3 men, the ambush, the silver in the trap. He told her he had been missing for 4 days, and that his second-in-command, a woman named Sarah, would be managing the situation with great difficulty, because they did not know if he was alive. "You need to contact them," Mara said. "I cannot use any of the normal channels. They will be watching those." Mara thought about it for a moment. Then she went to the shed and came back with the satellite communicator she used for remote field work, a secure, encrypted device registered to the conservation program, bounced through a server that had nothing to do with any network Darian's enemies would think to monitor. She handed it to him. He looked at it, then he looked at her. "You do not have to do this," he said. "I know," she said. "Do it quickly." He sent the message. Within 2 hours, 3 vehicles she did not recognize were parked at the base of her road. Darian went out to meet them, spoke quietly to the people inside, and came back to tell her that his community was mobilizing, that the rival faction had been located, that Sarah was handling the response. That evening, 3 men came to Mara's door. They were polite, well-dressed for the cold. They told her they were concerned about a missing person, that someone dangerous had been in the area, that she should come with them for her own safety. Mara had spent her career reading animals in pain and fear and aggression. She could read a threat wearing a calm face. She had known within 10 seconds of opening the door. She told them she had not seen anyone. She told them she would call if she noticed anything unusual. She closed the door, locked it, and walked back to where Darian was standing at the far end of the room. "They are gone," she said, "but they will come back." "They will not make it back," he said. His phone had lit up. He read the message on it, and something in his face settled. A tension she had not realized was there, releasing all at once. "It is done." Mara sat down on the couch and let out a long, slow breath. They stayed like that for a while. Darian standing, reading further messages, and Mara sitting very still, looking at the fire, thinking about how completely ordinary her morning had begun. Later, when it was dark again, and the fire had burned low, she asked the question she had been saving. "Why my scent? Out of everything in that forest, why me?" He was quiet for long enough that she thought he might not answer. Then he said, "Among my people, there are very rare cases where an alpha's instincts recognize someone before the mind does. Not a feeling, not a preference, something older than that. It does not happen to everyone. It does not happen often. When it does, it is considered," he stopped, "significant." Mara looked at the fire. "I am not asking you to do anything with that information," he said. "I am just answering your question honestly, because you deserve that." She nodded slowly. She got up, added a log to the fire, and went to the kitchen. She came back with 2 more cups of coffee and set one on the table beside him without a word. He looked at the cup, then at her. She sat back down and opened her book. He stayed until morning. Darian went back to his community 3 days later. His world needed him. There was damage to repair, trust to rebuild, a fracture in his leadership that would take months of careful work to close. He left early, while the sky was still dark, and said very little at the door. Mara went back to her work. Her days looked the same from the outside. But she left the back door unlocked. 3 weeks later, at dusk, she looked out her kitchen window and saw a black wolf standing at the tree line. He was not moving toward her. He was simply standing there, watching the light in her window, still and patient, the same way he had watched her door on that second night. Mara did not go outside. She reached over and turned on the porch light. He stayed until midnight. He came back the following evening, and the one after that.